Okay, hello, we are back again to continue where we left off in Cursed Site here. Alright, let's see what happens with these newly found friends, I guess you could say. I mean, east meets west type of thing, and it's like, they seem to be pretty friendly so far. I mean, the girl, Zulu, does not seem too bad. She seems like she might be nice. They both have, this cursed site and everything. And Zulu almost seems like maybe she likes Guy or something. I do, for some reason, I get this weird vibe that it might. I was wrong, or so far we don't know that it is. So far I think it's wrong. That she is not Guy's sister. I was like, shit man, maybe it's Guy's sister. But it looks like so far none of that has come to fruition of that's what it is. So let's continue this. As the crescent moon dangled under the starry sky, I towed my exhausted self back into the tent. I found Mion and Zulu sitting inside, chuckling at a bunch of papers sprawled across the grass. Oh no, being stranded in this forest had at least unwired their brains. Hang on, you two. Dr. Guy has arrived to shake some sanity back into your heads. Good evening, Sir Guy, Zulu said, giggling. Take a look at these comics Neek drew. Neek, an artist? Then I must be a rocket scientist without even knowing it. I did recall seeing street artists in West Taria during my childhood. My parents had bought me some of their comics, even. Watch your backside, Neek. I knew my stuff when it came to art. With calling the whole entire thing of rocket scientist in there, kind of out of the setting, it kind of throws it off. The immersion in the setting, because, this seems like an older time frame, technology wouldn't be in advance. It seems kind of out of place. I would have chose a different type of saying to put it as. Because I think the writer forgot what type of time frame they have the setting. I understand what they wanted to try to convey here, but I think they could have came up with something else other than that to try to fit more into the setting, I picked a few pages off the ground to flip through. Both the art and humor seemed passable at best, but I might just as lashing out because Neek happened to be an artist. Mion and Zulu have never read a comic before. Talking about easily amused. If they ever saw a performer juggling two balls, they might die from a laughing fit. They do seem like maybe they're enjoying this. Maybe it was kind of nice for you guys all just to run away. I mean, they're pretty much prisoners when you think about it. To their, each side, country, if you want to call it that. And they basically were being used as pawns. These girls didn't know what they're doing. Well, they probably knew what they were doing, but they kind of had no choice in the matter. And they probably caused bad things to happen that they don't really want. But what else are they gonna do? Either do that or die. I recalled hearing Zulu laugh like this in her tent a few nights ago. Must have meant Neek and Zulu's night meetings had in fact been comic reading sessions. Zulu seemed to be loosening up now that we spent almost a week together. As for Mion, I had forgotten the last time she chuckled like this. Not since Sasa's death, I believed. Seeing her smile made me do the same. I knew you'd like these comics, Zulu said, lifting her chin as if she had authored those pages. She must have thought my smile meant I loved the comics. Yeah, they're alright, I said, handing the pages back to Zulu. Neek's a really good artist, Zulu said. Mistress Mion says she loves the comics too. Mion gently slapped Zulu's hat, causing it to slant. Remember what I said. No more of that mistress stuff. Zulu does seem to... Not Zulu, I mean Neek does seem to have quite a few little talents. He seems to be a little popular guy with the girls. Zulu straightened her hat. Okay, Mion. Mion nodded, giving off the aura of an older sister treating her sibling. And no more Sir Guy either. Actually, I kinda like it, I said. Mion lowered her head in my direction, looking like she wanted to fold every paper around her in planes and suicide bomb them at my man parts. With a sigh, I nodded. Yeah, no more sir for me. Got it, Mion, Guy, Zolo said, beaming as Mion stroked her hat in praise. You two sure are close. Is that so? I collected the pages off the ground and ordered them by page, all in an effort to keep cool. Zolo nodded 3 times, as if worried Mion and I missed the first 2 nods. Mion keeps talking about you whenever we're alone. She said you taught her how to find her joy in life. Oh, that's cool. I double-checked the comic pages to make sure they flowed in the right order. Hang on. Maybe I should check them 3 more times, just to be safe. Go for a walk, Guy, Mion said, her face as red as a lantern that caught fire. My cheeks felt like they had been lit by a match, so I probably looked just like her right now. Come on, Guy. This was a perfect situation for a man to show his cool. I tried to retort in the same deep voice that Nick often used. Your words have already been etched into my heart. Mion stretched her hands towards Zolo, looking ready to hurl her at me. Okay, a walk. I second and I bolted. Mion zipped up the tent, no doubt about to engage in a girls-only talk with Zolo about keeping secrets. Oh, that's what Mion thinks of me. I muttered to myself and cackled, causing the ravens overhead to scatter from their nests. Sorry, birds, but this evening belonged to Guy, champion of the wild. I needed to call Mion out on one mistake, though. She said I taught her how to find joy in life, but that credit in fact belonged to Sasa. I would know, as she has shown me the same thing. Without her, I might have hung myself a long time ago. Seeing Mion smile made me feel fine with putting the future on hold. With her around, maybe living our lives in this forest with the spiders and bats could be okay. Well, alright. I could do without the spiders. I spotted several comic pages scattered outside Neat's tent. That klutz must have slipped them off his butterfingers. I picked up one of the pages to take a look. Let's see, a drawing of a boy and a girl embracing each other. Their faces inches apart from a kiss. The 2 characters sure looked like Neat and Zolo. Somehow, I got a feeling Neek never intended for this particular piece to see the light of day. Hey! Neek shouted from behind me. He swept every page off the dirt before snatching the one I was holding in my hand as well. Oh, a secret comic here. Listen, you, Neek panted. This is a secret between men, got it? I nodded, struggling to keep a straight face. A few chuckles escaped despite my greatest efforts. First a few, then okay, a lot. How about this? I do a sketch of you and Mion, then you keep your mouth shut, Neek said. There's no need, but hey, Zolo really loves your comics. In fact, that's probably one of the things she likes about you best. So maybe you can stop trying to act cool and just be yourself. Zolo likes me? You really think so? Yeah, maybe. Goddess. There were so many Z's in there, I thought Neek had fallen asleep. And there's something else. Neek regained his composure as he waited for me to continue. Your comics put a smile on Mion's face, I said, averting my gaze. So, you know, thanks. He changes into this cool self. Hell yeah. Girls like me, yeah. So even a commoner like you recognize my talents, Neat said. What did I just say about trying to act cool? His smug grin made me regret even praising him. One kind of word and this guy thought he was champion of the wild. Who could be so conceited to even make such a claim? It takes years of blood, sweat, and tears to reach my level, Neek said. Sweat and tears? Fine, but blood? Maybe he once stabbed himself with a pencil while drawing. Anyone can scribble on some scrap paper. It's about whether readers can sense the passion under those lines, Meeks rambled on. Meanwhile, I pondered about the matters concerning the universe, like whether I should have fish or rabbit for lunch tomorrow. Hey, are you listening? Neek asked. Yeah, art, talent, sweat, passion, cool. Neek sighed. I started drawing because my parents barely made enough bronze to feed themselves. Zolo saw my art on the street and let me draw for her in the temple. For that, I owe her my life. Oh, she must have a little bit more freedom to go out on the street. Maybe Zolo had a little bit more freedom than Mion, not being locked up as much. Neek's eyes met mine. Zolo told me she wanted to look into your past. I know it means a lot to her, so listen, I'm begging you here. Neek fell on all fours the way Zolo often did. Since we met, he had challenged me over every little thing. Whose breath stank more in the mornings, who stepped on more rabbit poo in a day, and whatever else. I never imagined I would see him plead like this. Fine, I'll do it, I said. I swear, if I die in the process, my spirit will curse you into never growing another inch. You'll be safe, Neek rose, brushing dirt off his pants. I gave you my golden promise. Those words assured me that about as much as a spider promising it would never crawl onto my face at night. Much better to kill with fire if you asked me. Neek gestured me to follow him into his tent. I did as asked and found Zolo sitting inside. I got him to say yes, Neek said. His proud tone made me feel like it just scammed by a con artist. Zolo twirled her fingers as if knitting an invisible scarf. You'd have my eternal gratitude, Guy, but are you sure? I shrugged. You can thank Neek, I guess. We went all out convincing me into playing along. Oh, thank you. Zolo hopped up to Neek and coiled her arms around him. Neek's head swiveled as if his spirit had drifted off to the moon. Better let him go, Zolo, or his soul might never return. Zolo released Neek and spun to face me. In that case, please pardon my rudeness, Guy. Zolo clasped my shoulders and lowered me to her height. She pressed 2 fingers against my left temple, followed by another 2 on the right. Goddess of time, rewind the clock, grant me your vision. As Zolo chanted under her breath, the grass underfoot began to shake. It felt just like the carpet quaking whenever Mion performed a ritual back in the temple. I felt as if needles were poking into my brain, but Zolo gritted her teeth, and the pain went away. She really kept to her word about keeping me safe, but perhaps it came at the cost of her well-being. I could feel the sweat on her fingertips staining my temples. It's probably kind of like, with Mion. She gets exhausted afterward or something. And I always wondered, and I still think that, every time they perform whatever this is, it's basically taken away part of their life. It's kind of like every time they do it, they're getting closer and closer to death. Just a little more. Neek furrowed his brows in my direction. That look told me if I asked for a break now, he would cut off one of my butt cheeks. Both if I changed my mind and never wanted to do this again. There sighs rumbling as Zolo lowered her hands. Neek pulled a handkerchief from his pocket to brush the sweat off her neck. It really is you. Zolo covered her lips with both hands. My brother Guy! I was right, I thought it was her sister! I can't believe it! It really is! Wow! It's like meeting meeting the long lost sister and long lost brother. It has been, let's see, he said he was there for 10 years, so it has been at least 10 years, I think it was. Now that is a long time. Wow. Did Zolo just call me brother? Perhaps this should be the moment where I wept and embraced my long-lost sister under the sunset. Well, first, the sun had gone to sleep hours ago. Second, I knew better than to accept her words that easily. Neek gave Zolu a nod before stepping out of the tent. The one time when I wanted him around, he had to act all considerate and leave us alone. I could have sworn someone had vacuumed all the air out of this tent. Mother and father were the first victims of my cursed sight. Once Westaria understood my powers, the temple took me in, Zolo said. Zolo's history matched Mion's almost word for word. More important, her story mirrored what had supposedly happened to my sister. If my sister still lived, she would indeed be around Zolo's age. Zolo squeezed her dress as if a mosquito had flown inside. The cursed sight affected my health when I was a baby. Mother and father sold you to cover the medical costs. But alright, we're getting reasons why. Okay, we're getting a little bit of history in the past of some things we didn't know, like reasoning why he was sold into slavery for medical costs for her. But if that's the reason, and maybe, of course he didn't know in the past. Maybe you can't, fault your mother and father as much because they wanted to save your sister, and you would still theoretically be alive, even though you were sold off into slavery. And you can't be angry at them as much, I guess. You can still have anger because they probably never explained it to you, and it would probably be hard to explain to a child. That meant selling me had nothing to do with the holiday or whatever else I had assumed. My parents could have just told me. Did they keep me in the dark, fearing I would hate my sister? Maybe they didn't think you would understand. Who knows? Zolo dropped onto her hands and knees. I've destroyed your life, brother. If you want to stab me right here, I'll have no complaints. Well, that would be a waste, him being sold off and, him going right there and killing you. Because then that means him being sold would have been a waste. I mean, you didn't do anything wrong. There'd be nothing, no reason to harm you. You have done nothing truly to him. I guess you could say Sasa, but that's a whole nother thing. I mean, it's not like she knew Sasa was probably going to get hurt. Half of me yearned for a reunion, while the other voiced 100 suspicions. I felt as if hands were pulling me from either side, threatening to tear me in two. Zola reached toward me, and I retreated until my back hit the wall. I need some time to think this through. With that, I flipped the tent flap open and fled into the forest. If Zolo had followed me out, I might have started running. I crawled back into my tent and found Mion already asleep inside. She snored in her sleep as always, but I never told her, as she might respond by impaling a pineapple between my eyes. I sat cross-legged in the corner and buried my face inside my hands. What made Zolo suspect I was her brother in the first place? She must have pieced the puzzle together when Mion told her things about me. I'd been so determined to spite anyone involved with Sasa's death. Zolo's personality already made it hard enough for anyone to hate her, and now she claimed to be my sister as well. The news only brought back memories I had tried so hard to bury. Zolo felt responsible for what had happened to me as a child. Now I knew why she loathed herself so much. It must have been gnawing at her all this time, yet I still wish she had never told me. Or our first step together as potential siblings, and I had already fallen flat on my face. Someone put a hand on my shoulder and covered my face to see a Mion kneeling before me, her nose close enough to touch mine. After a decade together, I no longer feared being near Mion and her cursed sight. In recent years, what made my heart pound was the fact that she was a girl. Tonight, with my mind bursting with uncertainties, those feelings never registered. Guy, everything looks okay? Mion asked. Great. Way to disturb everyone's night, Guy. I tried to give Mion a summary so she could return to sleep, but as I talked, all my thoughts came pouring out. There's no way I can suddenly start treating Zolo like my sister. It's barely been 2 weeks. Mion nodded and kept silent so I could ramble on. I'm still shaken over what happened to Sasa, I keep seeing her corpse in my sleep. Mion looped her arms around me. Her warmth melted my shell of toughness. My voice started to crack. Damn it, sorry. No, you'll be thinking about it too. Mion tightened her embrace, letting her hair drape across my shoulder. Stop being silly and tell me all your problems. Mion spoke in the same tone Sasa used to put on whenever I threw a tantrum. I thought the war would force me to grow up, but please, just for this evening, let me remember how fun it felt to act spoiled. Aw, their hands. I think they actually like each other. I mean, they've been together for a while. Whether you can just consider them close friends and kind of like family in a way. Maybe it's more than that. You never know. But, you know. Mion released her embrace and took a seat on the grass beside me. After locking our fingers together, we exchanged stories of the nightmares that had been plaguing our sleep. Perhaps I should be struck by lightning for this, but it relieved me to learn that Mion's heart had been scarred as badly as mine. I treasured every ordeal we shared, no matter how good or bad. A pair of bees stung us. I might even keep the needles for souvenir. Aw. That was nice. The next morning, I visited the pond to find Zolu, apologizing at a fish she had scooped up. With a heart like hers, I doubt she would ever make much of a hunter. Mion had followed me out of the tent, but as I approached the pond, she stopped trailing in my steps. I actually wanted to cling to her sleeve like kindergartner, but it looked like she had decided to let me resolve this way with my own strength. Good morning, Guy. Zulu stepped out of the pond with water dripping from the tips of her waist-length hair. You know, when Mom and Dad sold me to East Taria, I really hated them, I said. But thinking back, I met some pretty okay people in the temple. I peered over my shoulder and shot Mion only a glance to avoid blushing too much. Though a portion of my heart still wanted me to hate Zolu, I vanquished the thought and barely managed to smile. I'm still breathing, anyhow, so stop hating yourself and start living freely. Yeah, when you think about it, he would have never met Mion and Sasa, and you know how things change. I mean, after a while, personally, I would have, even though you were basically sold into slavery, you always had a meal, you always had a place to sleep, and you made friends with two people, and, you know, they kind of, in a way you could consider them, they became your family, and maybe life wasn't as bad. You know, I don't know if he was actually beaten and other things like that as a slave. They never really went into too much detail throughout him being one, because, you know, there's a lot of, if you looked at it, there's a lot of time frames that, like, so much time passed, especially that one where 10 years passed by. So, you know, you don't know exactly what all happened in that 10 years. Maybe they're being sold as slaves. Him being sold as a slave, it wasn't as really that bad. I mean, just, you think of slavery as bad, but how about how well they were treated? Maybe as a slave, he was treated well. The only problem is he doesn't have his freedom of doing whatever the hell he wants. He still has boundaries and more rules that he has to follow, and he can't just freely go out and be like, you know what, I'm done here, I'm not going to do this shit anymore. He just has to continue. Maybe he was treated well. A little bit better than what you think slaves are usually treated. Because, you know, some cultures and some places of the world, slaves are treated like garbage. And Zozo stood speechless with her shoulders hunched. I must have really confused her, despite spending the entire night coming up with the coolest speech ever. Once Zozo stood before me, my words came slurring out like a baby vomiting food. Eventually Zozo's lips curled into a smile. She jumped in, threw her arms around me. Brother, brother! Zozo, being a baby when we separated, has zero recollection of me, yet she still gave her best effort in this reunion. I played my part in return by running my fingers through her hair. You expect me to start calling Zulu's sister? Try calling a stranger your uncle and see how weird that felt. For now, I just wanted to look after Zulu as a friend, because boy, did she need looking after sometimes. There's nothing wrong with that. And actually, you don't sound like you have to call her, hey sister. You can just call her Zolo. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't call my brother, even though he's my brother. I call him by his name. Do I really consider him my brother? Sure. But it's not like I go, hey bro. Well, I guess maybe every now and then I might say bro, you know. Like you're talking to one of your bros. And not in the sense that, you know, hey, this is my brother. But bro as in, this is one of my guys. He's one of my friends. I glanced over my shoulder again to see Mion smiling with both hands cupped over her chest. Did I say the right thing? I wanted to ask Mion and see if she might give me a lollipop. Well, if I had failed in her eyes, she probably would have already thrown a dead rabbit at me. The sound of advancing footsteps put me on alert. I let go of Zolo and turned to find Neek dashing up to us. Istarian soldiers, Neek said, panting. I saw them in the forest heading our way. I knew this day would come. In fact, I should be grateful it took this long. But now that the soldiers were upon us, I wanted to write a hate mail with Lok's name on the envelope. For a while, I thought the king had grown a heart and decided to set us free. What a laugh. The only thing he had grown was a beard, I bet. Zolo started running in the direction of our camp, and he called at her to stop before I could forget about the camp. That's the first place those soldiers would tear apart. Your comics, Zolo said. You put your heart into them. The comics aren't important. Come on! Neek grabbed Zolo's hand and hauled her in the opposite direction. After trading nods, Mion and I trailed them. The four of us sprinted along the forest with no destination in sight. I gave my best effort to keep running and ignored my scorching lungs. If I was alone, I might have surrendered, but with Mion here to share my fate, I would crawl and eat dirt if it came down to that. A minute later, Zolo dropped onto her knees and gasped for breath. Neek stopped on his tracks to stroke her back, but he too was sweating seeping out of his pores. Mion also gave up on running and had both hands cupped over her knees. Her skin looked so pale as I feared she might throw up. I pressed one hand against the tree trunk for support, wheezing for air as I worried the others might inhale them all, leaving none for me. Wheezing for air. There's plenty of air there, man. Once my breath settled, I heard the footfalls of armored boots in the distance. Every second we wasted here would allow those soldiers to close the gap. Our camp no doubt would have been discovered by now. Those tents would confirm our presence to the guards. We could never afford to sleep in this forest again, letting alone set up another post. With Neek's help, Zolo climbed back onto her feet. My legs are cramping up. Run back on your own while you still can, Neek, Zolo said in a commanding tone that matched her about as well as Lok matched honey and flowers. What? Neek shook his head. Even if I return to Westaria now, I'll be branded a traitor. Go to another village then. Zolo covered her mouth, probably realizing this was the worst time possible to shout. She clenched her fist and started to convulse. No town would ever welcome someone with powers like mine. You need to go alone. Neek extended her quivering hand towards Zolo, but I've sworn to stay with you until the end. Zolo swung her arm to keep Neek away. Stay with me and be killed by Istarian soldiers? I gave you an order, Neek. Zolo, please, get away from here. Biting his lip, Neek ran off, like he had been told, tears streaming down Zolo's cheeks as she watched him go. Aw, they're being separated. I hope they meet again. If they get out of this, I hope they meet again. Neek isn't really as bad of a guy as you might think. He kind of tries to act a little tough, but he's still young. I think that's part of the issue. He's still pretty much a kid. He's not as tough as he seems. Thank you, Neek. I've troubled you for long enough. With no one left to offer her a handkerchief, Zolo had to settle for wiping the tears with her sleeves. Those soldiers must have received orders to take me on alive, and Zolo would have proved just as valuable to the king. As for killing me, well, the guards might feel more remorse stepping on a snail. Mion turned her head in my direction. perhaps wanting to send me off after Neat. I shook my head before she could speak. Don't even think about it. If I wanted to leave you behind, I would have done so a long time ago. Oh, Guy, you silly thing, Milan said. It's just a matter of time before we get caught. What should we do? Oh shit, I got a choice here. Oh my gosh. Alright, I wouldn't be surprised if I never even looked to see if this had multiple endings. This might actually lead us to a different who knows? How about we stop it there and we make the decision in the next episode. So I'm actually going to save it here. And we're actually going to make this decision in the next episode. Because I think this is a great little location to pop off. We're at the height of something. We have no idea. And this will actually give me a little bit of time to thinking about. Because I don't know if this has multiple endings. I am not going to look up what those endings are. I'm not even going to look up that. Because I want this to be a mystery to myself. I want it to be a mystery. So I make the decision and then I find out what happens. I'm not gonna look at it at all. Well, guys, I want to thank you for watching this. If you enjoy this, feel free to subscribe. I will have plenty of. I try to post daily, so there will be plenty of videos to look forward to in the future. If you in the description box, I will have a link to this game if you want to check it out yourself. I'll also have a link to where you can check out more of my stuff. Again, guys, I want to thank you all for watching this, and you all have a great day.